Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. Despite the traffic, I think we all were able to make it. I think our panelists don't need a lot of introduction because they've been so successful in terms of growing their companies that I'm just going to ask them to come here to the stadium, I was going to say. And Laura, Jordi, Enrique. I think we're missing Sergi, right? Is he coming or? Okay. Okay, we'll see if Sergi comes, but in the meantime, well, this is a panel about whether we think the Spanish ecosystem is already mature enough, and I think we have great examples here with Enrique, Jordi, and Laura that this is really the case. Three companies that have been very successful: Wallbox, Redpoints, and Factorial. And I think we're going to have a great session asking them about their experience. So I think I'm going to start by asking you about your fundraising efforts, because we obviously have here three very successful companies, but I think the journey has not been easy, and definitely I know for a fact that it hasn't. I was just talking to Laura, and we were laughing because it wasn't always as easy as it seems now. So maybe I can start with you, Laura. I know, congratulations on all the different recognitions that you've been getting from the government in Catalonia. I think that's very well deserved.
Thank you.
So maybe starting with you, can you tell us a bit about your fundraising history and what were the beginnings like, and what do you think made the inflection point in terms of Redpoints being able to be then successful attracting international investors?
When you really think, when you're nothing, that you want to be global, everything has to be global. So you try to build a global team to address the global market and try to reach global investors. So this was our case. Of course, we had a first investment from Bank Sabadell, very, very early days, from Be a Startup. But our first fundraising also was friends and family. But not friends and family, business angels. But when I decided to start like the serious investment and fundraising journey, we tried to address international funds. Why? Because for us, Spain is a small market. The biggest market is global. So I thought that international investors with their international ecosystem and international network could help us better. This is why our first investor was from Luxembourg, Mangrove Capital Partners, that they did our Series A in 2016. Back then, the Series A were 2 million. Now it's 10 million, 12 million, 20 million is Series A.
We know.
Yeah, but back then it was 2 million, and we were very, very, very happy. And that was a game changer because they introduced us to a lot of international investors. So 1 year later, we were able to raise 20 million. And of those 20 million, Series B, 10 was for secondary, 10 was for primary. And then the following very, very closely, we closed with Summit Partners the Series C, that it was 38 million, again 8 million for secondary, 30 million for primary. So in our history, we've raised so far like $45 million, something like that. And to answer your second question, the inflection point for us was US. When I opened our office in US in January 18, that was also, again, a game changer because we opened a huge market with success that is very, very difficult to be successful in US. And as of today, 60% of our revenues come from US.
Right. No, that's super interesting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Over to you. So first, Spanish company in the New York Stock Exchange. Tell us a little bit about what made you want list in New York versus NASDAQ, or what options you had, and how was the thinking process of going directly to that in that path?
Yeah, so I think it's very similar on what Laura was saying about being global and be a global leader, no? it was the beginning of last year, and some of our competitors, actually, we have one big competitor, which is an American company, and we have a couple of European and Australian competitors. And I saw that two of them decided to go public. Okay, and that's a great thing because you can see when somebody goes public, like Wallbox, all the information. It's full transparency. You show everything. You can look at the SEC website. Everything you want to know about Wallbox is there. And I was checking all the information that they release, and I saw, wow, I'm growing faster. I'm almost as big as them. Just probably next year, I'm gonna catch them, or in a couple of years. I have double gross margin, so I'm eventually gonna make more money than all of them, and I have a better product. You know, everybody was focusing on only doing chargers for the street, and we were doing chargers for the home, for the work, for the street, and more important, we are doing all the energy management. You know, which is more important, is saving money, saving energy, using renewables. All of this is what we're always doing. And I said, wow, we are gonna win. That was my first reaction.
Great.
But then I said, oh, but I don't have 300 million or 250 million, and they do. So if I'm gonna be the number one in the world, I don't have any other option that play in the same, the same rules. So we didn't have any other option. But was this or selling the company? And Eduardo and I, we don't want to do that. To go public, raise this money, and be competitive. And that was the reason to be number one.
That's great, and obviously it allows you to be very public in terms of the information you need to share. So you need to have everything in order. So that's very good. And Jordi, over to you. We obviously we're a fund based in Spain, and the types of multiples that you were able to reach and the valuation in your round is inspiring for a lot of the rest of the ecosystem, and they want to get to those levels. So tell us a little bit about how you approached fundraising, to what extent driving valuation versus the types of options that you had for investors was a factor in your thinking process, and how did you manage that?
So thank you, Sonia. We always approached fundraising as any other strategic decision in the company. So whatever is going to help us achieve our objectives, right? And we always looked for the most amount of capital, for the least amount of dilution, and for the best overall value add that these investors could deliver to us. And I would say in this order, right? There is a lot of talk about value add, and each time I've done fundraising, we've done a seed round, a Series A, and a Series B. Each time we've done a lot of references. So it means that I talked to a lot of founders who raised money or could raise money but chose somebody else from all of the funds that I talked to. And I always asked them the same question, like, who did you choose? And they say, well, I chose whatever, CRV or Creandum or Tiger Global or whoever. These are some of our investors. And then it's like, why did you choose them? And they always tell you, because the feeling with the partner was great, and because their value-add services were really important and impactful in our business. And I agree, I think that's all true. But then I always challenge that with another question, is like, did you have a term sheet with better terms that you didn't take?
Right, exactly.
100% of the answers, no. So it does matter. As a founding team, you want to keep, you value what you're building. You want to keep as much of it as you can. And you also want to raise as much capital as you can to be able to execute and grow and achieve your most ambitious dreams. So yes, valuation matters, not valuation, but dilution matters, and having money in the bank matters. And now, for instance, we're in a slightly concerning times when it comes to some growth funds kind of pulling back, the public market equity multiples kind of going down. So people who raised a little bit more than they needed, they're not worried at all. People who raised a little bit less than they needed, they're freaking out. So I think it's better to be in the first group. So that mattered. And just briefly on our funding history, we started the company 5.5 years ago with 100,000 euro from the founding team. We raised 400K euro from friends and family. They were technically business angels, but they were friends and family because we all had a previous startup experience, so they already trusted us. And the first venture capital round was a seed round, 2.8 million euro, led by Creandum, and joined by K-Fund and Point 9 Capital. And that was the hardest one because we had a team and we had a product, but we had really little metrics and not good ones. And that's it. And we had 3 weeks of runway, which means that we were about to run out of money. So we were about to die, and then you go raise money, which is the worst time to go raise money. So that was the hardest one by far, and that's the one we're most proud of because it was a make or break kind of funding. Then the Series A, we did in a really good position. We were almost break even, which means almost infinite runway, really good metrics, really fast growth. We did $16 million CRV, led it, and then some months ago we did an $80 million Series B led by Tiger Global. So total of around 100 million.
No, that's super impressive. Congratulations, and it's good to keep the energy when you have 3 weeks runway. That's
It's hard, yeah.
that's really impressive. Well, thank you for joining us, Sergi. Right on time.
Yeah, sorry. Didn't remember a busy Barcelona, but it's great to see it again. So
No, that's good. No, I was going to ask you about whether you felt in the fundraising history that the business model that you had, more focused on marketplaces, direct to consumer, played a role in terms of attracting, whether you needed to really target the types of investors that were more focused on your area. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So well, we started in 2017, right? So similar to them, our story has been changing, and there were times that were easier to fundraise and times that was harder. For us, I think that we mostly had two big challenges, or two challenges, some that other Spanish startups face, some that they didn't. The first one is being born in Spain, no? So being born in Spain at the end of the day, and this is changing and evolving quite a lot, but we had to go and fundraise outside of the country quite soon, right? So that I would say was our first challenge when we were fundraising. And the second one is, some of you might know what Covin is, but we work on the floriculture space, right? So I guess not a lot, or even no one here knows how the floriculture industry works. So there was a lot of work that we had to do on the investor education and understanding how we were solving not only a problem, but actually a big problem, right? So some of you understand what we actually do, right? So we started with a very clear vision in 2017 to change the floriculture industry, right? So we started with the consumer business, and that's the most known, and some I hope here have purchased, but mostly what we do is we are digitalizing and building the new operating system that goes from the grower to the flower shop and to the consumer. So we bring better efficiency for a perishable model that is floriculture. And what happens in the industry now is that basically from the grower to the consumer, 7 out of 10 of flowers happen to be physically in the Netherlands. 7 out of 10 flowers that are transacted globally. This generates that there are 3 to 4 intermediaries between grower to retailer, 15 to 20 days on average, and not only unnecessary transports, but actually 30% waste, right? So, and I relate to more or less the second reflection you were doing, no? So we had certain challenges, and for us there's been 3 things that has been key to make sure we kept fundraising in the different rounds. And the first one, and Jordi was covering, was definitely results. The better the results, the easier is to fundraise. The second one is having a clear value proposition that is differentiated. And for us, the third one is keeping persistent to our vision. We were not born to build 2.0 e-commerce that sells flowers. That's part of our business model. But mostly it is to change the industry as a whole. So in the last years, and I would say we also had some rounds that were more difficult. Last one was easier because we were driving to this path on how we were building software for growers, for wholesalers, for flower shops, so they connected in a better way and directly, and not flowers being shipped from the Netherlands and then back to France or Spain and degenerating inefficiency. So what I would say that was the 3 key things that we had to do.
No, it's a great business that you have. Congrats.
Thank you.
So I think that the title of the panel is really whether there's a new era in the Spanish ecosystem. So I wanted to touch upon this specific point with Laura. Redpoint's still domiciled in Spain, so you're an SL company. Do you feel that has been, well, obviously not, but was it ever an issue you felt that you had to go and re-domesticate in the US or in Europe to be more attractive to investors, or do you feel there's no taboo in terms of investing in a Spanish company?
Well, that is a very interesting question. In our case, has never been a problem because, as I said, we have on board Mangrove from Luxembourg, Northern from Sweden, 8 Roads from London, and Summit from Boston. So Summit Partners from Boston. So it has never been a problem because the Spanish ecosystem is an ecosystem that all the funds in the world are looking at. So they look for the good projects and they like to find the good projects. So I guess that for us, that we've been growing very nicely from the very beginning, it has never been a problem. I don't know if you're not this kind of company that you're struggling a bit, you're not growing that nicely, then it may be a problem because, as I say, the international funds, what they do is come here and look for the stars. And there may be very good companies that well-funded could be stars, and they're not being stars because they're not well-funded. No, it's like a cycle. So I'm not saying that it's not a problem. It can be certainly a problem. And definitely when you think about taxation and all of that, Spain is not the best country to build a company, but that is a different stuff.
Perfect. No, thanks. Enric, to you, I think one of the challenges that we still have in Spain is talent, probably, that you find in order to build a big company, you may not find the right people still in Spain because the ecosystem is not mature enough, you don't have VPs of growth or marketing. How is it for Wallbox? Do you feel that you are able to attract talent here, or do you have any issues in that front?
So we are hiring a lot. Last year we hired almost 600 people, and this year we plan to hire close to 1,000. So we are growing very fast, and that's one of the priorities of the company because obviously the targets and the business is the what's important. But to achieve that, we need a global organization that can support that growth. No, we are present in 84 countries. So that's also something, we are present in many places. But I think Barcelona, Madrid, and Spain in general is a great place to bring expats. It's before COVID it was very easy. Now it's becoming again easier. And in the meantime, with COVID, with the lockdowns, we have been hiring a lot of remote. But coming to live to Barcelona, it's something people want, and we have been able to hire more than 30% or almost 40% of the staff lately. It's coming from abroad, so it's good to attract talent here, but also a local talent. And I'm very proud and happy that Wallbox was born in Spain because it would have been almost impossible doing it in other places in the world, because especially Barcelona is a city that has the software talent for cloud and for app mobile that we need, the hardware engineers that we need to develop our products, the embedded and firmware engineers that inside the chips, and the industrialization part. We are doing software, we're doing hardware, and we are building equipment. So we have all these tier ones, all these automotive companies in Spain that are helping us to build our products. Obviously, we have suppliers all around the world, but for us, for Eduardo and myself, when we started, the both of us, making a product, it would then have been possible in many other places. I think China probably. But we could go to suppliers, show them what we want to do. They build the things for us at the beginning. So I think it's a great place to create a company. It's a great place to create a company with software and hardware, which for us was very important. And it's very nice to bring people here.
Great. What about you, Jordi? Would you say that, if you had started Factorial somewhere else, it would have been just a little bit easier? I know you had international investors from the beginning. Are there things that you thought, maybe if we had set up in Berlin, we could have been, scaling much faster? Or is there anything that you feel is lacking in the ecosystem?
So it doesn't need to be hypothetical. So my previous startup was a company called Teambox at the beginning, that Red Booth, started by Pablo Villalba. We were a Spanish company. And back in 2010, we tried to raise a Series A. And honestly, maybe few people, but in our experience, nobody in Spain knew what software as a service was. And even in Europe, it was really early, right? So we couldn't raise a SaaS round with Spanish European investors back then. So we were not forced, but last resort was to go to San Francisco, go to the US and try to raise money there. and we could raise the money there, but we were required to stay there, both legally and physically, right? So in 2010, we had to go to an American investor, raise money from them, go from an SL, a Spanish incorporated company, to a American company, and physically relocate ourselves there. Fast forward 2020, at Factorio we went to raise a Series A. There were European investors that know about SaaS. We had KFan on our cap table.
Yeah.
We knew you guys. There's a few, not many, but there are a few investors here that know about SaaS. But there are not a lot of success stories yet, right? So the comparables are kind of humble. And we don't want to compare to those. We want to compare to the big ones. And those are still coming from the US mostly. So we went to San Francisco physically. We flew there to New York, to London, to Berlin to talk to global investors. And 10 years later, this time the American investors, in our case CRV, they agreed to invest in a Spanish company for a Spanish-based team. So we took their dollars, took them here, and kept operating as a Spanish company based in Barcelona. Now, 1 year later, we went for a Series B. This time it was COVID, it was full lockdown. We didn't even have to go anywhere. And then we convinced an American investor who we have never met in person yet to raise our Series B of $80 million. So it took 10 years to go from first step to second step, and now only 1 year because of COVID to go to a fully global, fully distributed venture capital. So yes, I think we're making a little bit of progress in the sense of Spanish or European entrepreneurs being able to raise globally without having these hard restrictions on having to relocate themselves and so on. And we thought a lot about where to start Factorial legally. We thought about Spain, we thought about the US, we thought about the UK, the Netherlands. There's different reasons: access to capital, taxation, stock options. There are different things. Eventual path to IPOs. There's a lot of things that we took into consideration. And at the end, we said, look, we're going to be based here. A significant part of our business is going to be here, although with an international company. It just makes sense to be incorporated here. We regretted it sometimes, but we're still here.
That's great. What about you, Sergi? I know that you had to look for investors also outside of Spain.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there was enough knowledge by the Spanish ecosystem, or in terms of accessing investors or talent? Is there anything that you feel is missing as you have been, your fundraising path?
I think they were touching to relevant points. The first was team, and definitely I think we have great talent in Spain. I think that also even more in Barcelona, there's this spirit and bias to working more and more in the startup scene. So, and from software to even business to in general, I think in Spain we have great talent, and also we have the power to attract talent. And I think Enrique was covering. So for us, it's also been not easy. It's never easy to build a great team, but it's been easier than probably other places to attract the right talent in the company, even outside of Spain. And on the investor side, I think it's been changing quite a lot, at least from our experience, but also experiences talking to other founders. And more Spain has been put on the spotlight. We have American investors proactively contacted us when some year ago no American investors, or a few American investors, were investing in the Spanish scene. Or as we were saying, so our last round we raised 45 million, and we were speaking from investors on all over the globe, and we decided for an European one, Eurasio. So I think that definitely talking about the new era for the Spanish ecosystem, we are seeing fruitful changes that some were already here, like the talent, the place, we already had it, but more and more investors see the value in investing in Spain. And I think that COVID, all in all, has changed this quite a lot. It doesn't matter that much anymore where you're based, in terms of where you do business, but actually more and more companies work remote, more and more. We also didn't meet the investors when we did the round because we were in COVID period. So at the end of the day, I think that definitely there's an era for the Spanish ecosystem, and both team was here, but investor-wise, we are on the spotlight.
Great. I think we have a bit more time, but I think that probably, 10 minutes. A lot of entrepreneurs here who would like some words of wisdom from the four of you, very successful businesses. If there's anything, and I'm improvising here, so if there's anything that you could have done differently, or any learnings that you can maybe share with the rest what would you say in terms of maybe, I don't know, hiring faster, firing faster? I don't know. Who wants to take this one?
Well, when it comes about hiring, I have a lot of learnings, many. And for me, the most important one is that sometime when you're in your journey in the early days, you are infatuated by some VCs, some people. I mean, some VCs, not some CVs, not some VCs, some CVs, some people know that they've done a very interesting career in this company and that company, and coming from California and Silicon Valley, and then going to London, and then you're like, whoa, no? And then you hire them when you have fresh money from the fundraising. And in my case, a good number of those have been wrong. And they've been wrong because you're infatuated, but you don't really see if there is a fit with your company. If the company they come from is similar to yours, because you know, SaaS is a model. SaaS is a model, but there are very different verticals, very different sectors, very different kind of companies, and the culture and so on. And in some cases, you say this person is not a fit 100% because his culture or her culture, her values are a bit different to us. But okay, let's go ahead because he or she comes from Silicon Valley. That's a mistake, a total mistake. And in my opinion, you may have a better team if you don't you try to I mean that person fits 100% and has the same values, and even if they don't come from these blah 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 companies.
And an expensive mistake many times.
A very expensive mistake.
What about you, Jordi? How do you feel you can really keep the culture going? How do you get the people that fit? And do you I assume you have an internal recruiter, but do you have how do you do the hiring so that you make sure that you have the best people?
So that's our, as founders and as leadership team, number one priority right now is fixing the culture as it breaks. Because when you grow so fast, and just to give you a couple of numbers, I don't even know the number because it changes daily, but I think we're like 570 people right now. We were 100 last year, like 40 people the previous year, right? So when you grow this fast, things break constantly. And just, it's not about complaining about it, it's like fixing it fast and setting up, an even stronger culture that kind of replicates without you, the founders, the leadership team being able to expose to everybody. So our number one mission right now is developing our managers. We have 100 people in the company that are managers. These are people that are hiding on their own, unsupervised. They're letting go. They're developing, promoting, like negotiating, transmitting the culture. So like they have a ton of power. They can completely kill the company or help us achieve our goals. So working with these people is our number one priority right now, and everything we can, like what's known and like new stuff. We're also in the HR space, in the people management space. So we also try to be creative and do things that are not necessarily known good practices. And of course, we make a lot of mistakes because when you try new things, many of them don't work. But that makes for our culture very strong. We promote a lot from within, which means that, so get this number again. Last year, we went 100 people. Now we're over 500. 100 of them are managers, which means that most managers are new in the company, relatively new in the company, and most of them are new as managers. So they have no idea what they're doing, and they need to catch up fast. They need to learn very, very, very fast. But if they make it, they're superheroes. Their loyalty, their strength, how well they distribute, the culture, and how well they're going to hire, and how well they're going to feel if somebody's not working out and they need to let go. That's extremely powerful. So I don't know, I could go on for like 4 hours about this topic because it's a big one for us.
Yes.
And an interesting one for me at least. How much value add you felt you got from investors, and in what ways? Because I guess with some of you being international investors, they have companies that have scaled a lot. Do you feel that they have had playbooks that they've been able to tell you, okay, now this is how you grow from 100 to 500, or in the case of you, Enrique, this is when you go and enlist in the US, then these are the types of things that you need to watch out for. How much value you felt you got from investors, or it was really more coming just from yourselves?
for us, it's I think the first thing coming what my colleagues were saying is, for us has been focused on the business. So first of all, achieve the targets. Second, obviously, and equally important, is hire the right people without losing the focus. And I want to say the third one is the investors, because if we didn't had the we didn't choose the best, in our case, well, maybe we are the 1%, but we didn't choose the best term sheet. When we were going public, we had offers that we have a much higher valuation, and we decided not, because in the case when we were going public, the company we merged with was a SPAC called Kensington. These were the former CEO of Chrysler, former CEO of Delphi, Lear, lots of experience in the automotive industry in the US, and that for us was key to be able to go into the American market. And more important is our chairman today, who also comes from Kensington, who is Anders Pettersson, and that's what made me fell in love with Kensington, because when I created Wallbox, I was always looking at a company called, I don't know if you know Thule, the bike rack company, and I was impressed how they were able to sell metal pieces for cars, keeping the brand. They are selling through car manufacturers, and nobody buys the BMW or the Mercedes bike rack. People go for the Thule. That's the good one. And I remember 7 years ago I was thinking, wow, I want to be the Thule of chargers, because I want that people choose my charger instead of the wide level of car manufacturers. And when I met Kensington, the responsible there was Anders, that he made that at Thule. He was the CEO of Thule.
Perfect match.
Yeah, he was 10 years building the brand and everything. So I said, that's the right company for me. It doesn't matter the valuation. What's important is the team. And that's for now, but in the past we were very lucky that our first investors were family offices with lots of capacity. So they have been following us, and they have been investing tickets up to 20 million, or 4 or 5 of them. So they have been following us, and it was very nice to know the person that owns the money and is your shareholder at the hard moments.
Yeah.
Later
You
we
have to look at them in the eye and.
Yeah, exactly. And with Ventures, it's perfect, because they add a lot of value with finding new investors, finding companies that you can collaborate. But in the hard moments, I find out that the family office was a very good support for me.
Excellent. We have a couple of more minutes. So
Sonia,
a lot
I
of
just
people.
wanted to mention a brief thing,
sure.
because I think that's a good point you made, Enric. So just to clarify, in our case, for instance, we didn't go with the best bidder. We chose the investor we liked the most, and we said, if you match the terms, we'll go with you.
Perfect.
And they always did. The good ones always did. So they don't always start the best, but if you show that you want them,
Exactly.
then they match. And I hope I had investors like the ones you mentioned extremely relevant to your business.
Yeah.
And can I add something?
Sure, yeah.
Because I think you mentioned also a very relevant point, that is, everyone wants to be your friend when you're at peak, right? But success doesn't look like this, it normally looks like this. So what we checked quite a lot also in the last round, it was with actually entrepreneurs where the fund invested, and we were not
didn't
only
go
checking
well.
the relationship, but saying, okay, what happened in hard times? And in 80-90% of the cases, they had to do anything, they did it, right? If it was a bridge, if it was supporting the company in any way, they did. So I think normally, not only for the valuation, of course, that you can get now, but also all of us bearing in mind, and we've been seeing it in our cases in the past, we've been seeing it in other companies in the ecosystem, success looks like this. So
Absolutely.
let's put someone that you can trust.
Excellent. I think we're out of time. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Sergi, Enric, Laura, Jordi. It was great to have you all here, and congratulations.
Thank you.